Hi, I'm Brendan Fisher and welcome to Crash Course World History. Today we'll be discussing the development of pop culture in the 20th and 21st centuries. I talk about pop culture because it involves two of my favorite things, a young Shia LaBeouf and rap music videos. Oh, Kanye.
Mr. Fisher, what's wrong with Shia LaBeouf now?
Do I really have to say it?
Pop culture is the entirety of ideas, perspectives, attitudes, images, and other phenomena that are within the mainstream of a given culture. This was evident in America during the 20th century and 21st century. Multiple sports leagues, a film industry, and several music genres all developed during this era. This closely paralleled the development of different fields of study during the Age of Enlightenment back in the 17th and 18th centuries. The same way Newton and his curly locks created the laws of motion, Michael Jackson and his sensational hair defied those laws by moonwalking. Let's start out by talking about America's pastime.
Mr. Fisher, you mean baseball?
Oh, me from the past. How naive of you. Only old white folks still watch baseball. The pastime I'm referring to is movies. The American film industry, commonly referred to as Hollywood, as a whole developed during the early 1900s. Hollywood is just another name for a neighborhood in central Los Angeles. It was originally Hollywood Land, but was cut to just Hollywood because it flowed better. Hollywood was officially incorporated into the city of LA in 1910, after which it became the home for many movie studios and children with disappointed parents. Oh, Macaulay Culkin, you and your heroin addiction.
Mr. Fisher, what's wrong with Macaulay Culkin? He's America's sweetheart.
Once again, me from the past, ever so naive. The films produced in those days were black and white until the 1930s, silent until 1927, and were quite short, with the average runtime of a film in the 1920s and 30s being around 15 minutes. Though film was around since the 1870s, it really came into its own in the 1900s, with vast advancements in the field throughout the century and even today. Leading the charge were the Lumiere brothers, commonly noted as the fathers of modern cinema. Let's go to the think tank for this one. Auguste and Louis Lumiere were French inventors. They devised an early motion picture camera and projector called the cinematograph, which is what the word cinema is derived from. In 1895, they made a film called La Sortie des Ouvriers de l'Usine Lumière, or Workers Leaving the Lumiere Factory, which is considered by many as the first film ever made. The innovations they made in the field were crucial to development of film as a whole. Thanks, think tank. This leads us to the golden age of cinema, regarded as the period from 1917 to 1960. This includes American classics such as The Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, Ben-Hur, and many more. Directors like Orson Welles, Billy Wilder, Howard Hawks, and Alfred Hitchcock, and actors like Jimmy Stewart, Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, Audrey Hepburn, and Marlon Brando were at the top of the game. This classical era of Hollywood can be compared to the Renaissance in that there was a resurgence of mankind as the focal point. While old movies are cool and all, let's talk about the movies we actually watch. To do this, let's start with Steven Spielberg's 1974 classic, Jaws. It is considered to be the first blockbuster movie ever. Jaws is very important in the modern Hollywood business model, which centers around high box office returns from action and adventure movies with simple high-concept premises that have a wide release during the summer and supported by heavy advertising. Some have accused Hollywood of releasing movies just to bring in revenue instead of making movies that are actually quality films. This is exemplified in the upcoming 2017 movie, The Emoji Movie, which leads me to my next topic, another thing many moviegoers bash quite frequently.
Mr. Fisher, are you talking about the price of concessions?
Close, but no cigar me from the past. I'm talking about the use of computer-generated images in movies. Usage of CGI, as it's commonly referred to, dates back to the 70s. Some of the first examples being Westworld and Jurassic Park. It has evolved substantially over time as computers have evolved, and in 2009, the first movie that was almost completely CGI was made, Avatar. Avatar was the first use of face image capture technology, which was achieved by the actors wearing skull caps fitted with cameras, which captured the actors' facial expressions accurately, even when the computer-generated image were juxtaposed onto it.
Mr. Fisher, does that mean we can make movies about dead people like Bob Marley and John Lennon?
Exactly, me from the past, which is a perfect segue to the next facet of 20th and 21st century pop culture, music. While music has been around for centuries, it was during the 20th century that many different genres and styles of music came into their own. Genres like rock, rap, reggae, and others shaped the sounds of this era. But to properly discuss music during this time, you have to start with the granddaddy of modern music, jazz. Jazz is a genre that found its roots in the New Orleans communities of African Americans in the late 1800s and early 1900s. This genre had many great artists like Jerry Mulligan, Chet Baker, Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, and Billie Holiday. The jazz genre served as the base for blues music, which further led to the development of rock music. Rock music developed during the late 1940s and early 1950s, and was derived from genres such as boogie woogie, you heard me, boogie woogie, jump blues, and gospel music, together with western swing and country music. Some heavy hitters when rock first emerged as a genre was Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Buddy Holly, Little Richard, Elvis Presley, David Bowie, Elton John, and many more people your grandpa and dad probably listened to. Another major genre to become popular during the 1960s was reggae. Reggae music originated in Jamaica and denotes a particular music style that was strongly influenced by traditional mento, as well as American jazz and rhythm and blues, and the earlier genres like ska and rocksteady. A major player in reggae was Bob Marley, arguably the greatest reggae musician of all time. He was very influential in the genre, leaving an illustrious legacy for those who followed him. Reggae music carried on strongly with artists like Jimmy Cliff, Burning Spear, Peter Tosh, and Gregory Isaacs, though losing its appeal as time goes on. As time went on, rock evolved into many subgenres like metal, grunge, alternative, punk, and a bunch of others that are really starting to ruin the genre as a whole. Some people consider rock to have gotten better during the 70s and 80s. Some notable rock acts to come out of that time period were Pink Floyd, Def Leppard, Led Zeppelin, The Who, Queen, Lynyrd Skynyrd, AC/DC, Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica. Which brings me to the 90s, a time where many of the subgenres actually took shape. Most notable was the Seattle grunge movement, led by Seattle's own Nirvana. Nirvana is considered to be one of the best bands to come out of the grunge movement. Other than the grunge movement, there are many other significant bands during this time as well. For example, Green Day, Foo Fighters, Weezer, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Alanis Morissette. In the late 80s, much of the mainstream popularity of rock began to level out. This becoming especially apparent with the introduction of the music genre of rap. Rap, also known as hip-hop, was developed in New York during the 1970s. It consists of stylized rhythmic music that commonly accompanies rhythmic and rhyming speech. It was very popular both because of the diverse range of background tracks and beats it utilized, as well as the relatable lyrics that many urban populations could connect to. Some of the rappers and rap groups that emerged after the genesis of rap were Eric B. and Rakim, Run DMC, NWA, Tupac Shakur, A Tribe Called Quest, Biggie, and Nas. Due to the nature of most of the lyrics in rap songs, rappers started to get a bad image. Although some rappers started to embrace that lifestyle and culture, this only aided their negative public image. This was especially evident with the rise of rappers like Jay-Z, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, and Eminem. Their lyrics describing in detail many violent acts, acquiring vast amounts of currency, and females. The different aspects of the street life and other things most people wouldn't consider to be kosher. While this is true, there is still a large devoted demographic that enjoys the music which is why it equaled rock in the 90s and early 2000s in popularity. This could also be attributed to the amount of different subgenres and styles of rap that developed, like gangsta rap, crunk, contemporary R&B, boom bap, and the one that gained the largest cult following, underground. And the undisputed king of the underground scene of rap rose as well, MF Doom. MF Doom, also known as Doom, King Doomile, King Ghidorah, Metal Fingers, the Supervillain, Victor Vaughn, and Zev Love X, is a British rapper that hit the rap scene in the late 80s, but really gained popularity in the late 90s and early 2000s. Noted for his immense rhyming skills, blending multisyllabic internal and external rhyme with the deft skill of a black Shakespeare. While he gained a large following in the underground scene, he hit the mainstream in 2004 when he released the album Mad Villainy, in collaboration with legendary producer Madlib. This album was met with critical and commercial success, rated at a 93 out of 100 on Metacritic, and is often cited in the discussion of greatest albums of all time. Speaking of Shaq, he blessed us with 4 outstanding albums of his own. They were Respect, Can't Stop the Rain, Shaq Fu, The Return, and my personal favorite, Shaq Diesel. Like Shaq, sports in the 20th century were huge and still are to this day. The first of these sports to really make its mark in the mainstream was baseball. Baseball is claimed to have been created by Civil War General Abner Doubleday in Brooklyn when he was a child. But historians claim that this myth is faker than Kim Kardashian's butt.
If you know how I feel, why would you say that? Like, you put me in such an uncomfortable situation.
Oh, that reminds me. It's time for the open letter. Ah, yes. Mother. Ah, Keaton. Thank you. Dear Major League Baseball, what happened to being our pastime? Used to be a spectacle to watch with legends such as Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Jackie Robinson, and many other greats. Then you went and ruined it with performance-enhancing drugs and wearing helmets at bats. I mean, even in the olden days, the players still chewed tobacco, and there was the occasional fixed World Series. Looking at you, Arnold Rothstein. Maybe you could take some inspiration from the NFL. Consider some cheerleaders or a halftime. Something to spice up America's pastime. Yours truly, Brendan Fisher. Aside from baseball, many other sports began to pop up on the main stage, like football and basketball. Football is an American sport that was created in 1869. It is now the most popular sport in America. It has branched out globally and is now spectated all over the world, but lacks global participation. Speaking of the NBA, the NBA was created in 1949 to help expand the popularity of basketball. Basketball first saw its popularity hit the mainstream in the late 1950s, when the Boston Celtics began a dominant NBA franchise with players such as Bill Russell and Bob Cousy. Soon team rivalries began to emerge, making games even more interesting. Basketball became a global sensation in countries like Germany, China, Canada, Spain, and Italy, and eventually became an Olympic sport. Now let's take a swing at another Olympic sport: boxing. Boxing is a prehistoric sport that gained global popularity in the 20th century when countries would have their best fighters compete in the ring. This was best seen in 1938 when the American Joe Louis squared off against the Nazi boxer Max Schmeling. Nothing screams national pride like a righteous uppercut in the name of Uncle Sam. Boxing became more and more popular throughout the 20th century and housed names such as Joe Frazier, Mike Tyson, Jim Braddock, and Rocky Marciano. No, not that Rocky. Yeah, that one. Most notable of the boxing greats was Muhammad Ali. He was able to turn boxing from a sport into a show with his charming charisma outside of the ring and his dominant fighting ability in the ring. Last, but definitely not least of the sports, soccer. Soccer had been popular well before the 20th and 21st century, but it really took off with the creation of FIFA. FIFA stands for Fédération Internationale de Football Association, and is responsible for soccer becoming the most popular sport in the world. Founded in 1904, it created a main stage for teams from all around the world to compete in national competition and show off their talent. FIFA has teams from 6 of the 7 continents and is the perfect example for diversity of culture and race in a sport. Ultimately, the several drastic developments and changes within the mainstream of society's cultural norms during this time period led to the complex and nuanced culture we see today. Specifically, such cultural developments diffused globally and found larger and larger audiences as time progressed. This led to their eventual diversification due to varying areas of origin and left us with the many subcultures we see today. Crash Course World History is directed by Dad Vaith Deo, and our animation team is sad and non-existent. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.